All right, greetings everyone. It is the first week of March 2024, and in the grand cycle of libertarian events, this puts us about two-thirds or three-quarters of the way to the Porcfest, to Porcupine Freedom Festival. This is an event that's held usually the last or the penultimate week in June. Every summer has been the case, I think, for 21 years at this point. And that may seem like a long way away. It's still winter here in New Hampshire. There's still snow and it's cold, and it likely will continue to be that way. And then we'll have a long, wet spring and then the bloom of summer. But as someone who, for the last couple of years, has been running an event at Porcfest, for my thinking, it's time to start to get stuff ready to do so. Like in the scheme of things, I'm slowly gearing up to do another Porcfest. And I've wanted to make this because, as some of you know, like I've been running a communal shower stand there for the last 3 years. This is going to be the fourth year that I'm going to do it. And there's a lot of things I want to kind of cover about that. So let's just do a little background about Porcfest. I know some of my subscribers don't know about Porcfest. A lot of you do know about Porcfest, but you've never gone, and shame on all of you libertarians. I don't know how many of my subscribers I have said should, and they say they will someday, and they never do, although some of you do. I mean, I always end up meeting subscribers at Porcfest. That's great, and I encourage everyone who's thought about it that you should go. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to move to New Hampshire. It doesn't mean that you have to become a free stater, but it's a really worthwhile event for you to go to at some point, and why not now? I also have following. There's lots of Telegram and Signal channels that kind of cover this. There's already a lot of activity kind of happening in terms of the planning. Apparently, there are still campsites available. It will fill up. It fills up every year. It definitely will fill up this year. But if you want to go, you can decide to go last minute. I mean, there's enough people there who are entrepreneurs, who are capitalists, who will freely exchange, that you can make something work. And there's always people who show up at the last minute and make it work. Especially if if you just want to freeload, you can do that. I wouldn't recommend it, but the truth be told, it does happen. But if you don't want to find yourself in a hot potato situation where you're living off of the charity of somebody else, planning ahead, and so it is wiser. So if you're interested, now would be the time to start like really looking into it. But just to kind of give there's an arc of history here that is starting to involve pork showers a little bit more than I initially anticipated would happen. So just to cover this, so Porcfest is short for the Porcupine Freedom Festival. It's an annual event put on by the Free State Project. I think you could say it's their premier event. They have others that are well known. I think Freedom Fest, one or two others. The other ones are typically held like in urban centers and are more like conferences. Like they'll rent out a hotel and have speeches, kind of like most other libertarian events. Porcfest, I think, is clearly the largest. We're talking at least 3,000 or 4,000 people, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 people, depending on how you want to count it. Because there's obviously people who won't be there all week, but will come and visit, for a day or part of a day. And forgive me if I get the dates exactly incorrect, but way back when the Free State Projects first started, so New Hampshire was selected in 2003, I want to say, and the idea was that they would get 20,000 signers, and when they had 20,000 signers, those 20,000 signers would then have 5 years to move. Now, the 20,000 signatures was reached in 2016, so it's been almost 8 years. I think it is 8 years now because I believe it was in February, filming this in 2024. So the idea was that there should have been the plan that nobody was going to move until after 2016. And what ended up happening is, I think a lot of those signers, if they haven't moved yet, they seem unlikely to do so, although there'll be some. But a lot of people just started to move immediately. And they were, by and large, welcomed by the already existent libertarian movement. I mean, the libertarian is not like the Libertarian Party per se, but New Hampshire already had a libertarian pass and a fairly robust libertarian ethos. The motto of the state is "Live Free or Die," which is obviously the best motto of any of the states. And the governor at the time actually encouraged the Free Staters to pick New Hampshire and move here. So those first Free Staters, those first movers, they weren't really coming to a place where they were the only ones. It wasn't like if the Free State had selected, I don't know, Portland or California, and you go and like you would be alone. And it sounds like a few of them, like half a dozen or so, just informally met and went camping in the place. And I don't know how they picked it, but they picked this extremely scenic campground in northern New Hampshire at a place called Lancaster. So, New Hampshire, like a lot of states, is one of those places where the population is not evenly distributed. It's not overall a large population state, period. I think the total for the state is about 1.4 million, and they're overwhelmingly concentrated in the South. It's something like the bottom third of the state has like 85 or 90% of the population. And as you go north, it gets less and less and less. And the top third, which is basically everything north of Franconia Notch, I mean, there's Berlin, which has maybe 10,000 people, and then all the other towns up there are 2,000 or less. They're very, very small. Having visited almost all of them at some point, when you look at a map and you see a dot with a name, you think that, oh, there's a settlement there, and there may be almost nothing. There may not be a restaurant. There may not be a gas station. There, you know. And Lancaster is kind of right on that. I think the population of Lancaster is something like 1,800, 2,200, something like that. Very small town, right on the Connecticut River, so it's right across the river from Vermont. But Rogers Campground is situated on the shoulder of, I guess the definition is probably a hill, but it's a rocky promontory with a gorgeous view of the presidential range and also other features of northern New Hampshire like Mount Cabot, maybe even Lafayette. I've hiked the presidential range multiple times. I've done Mount Washington 2 or 3 times. I've done Eisenhower and Adams, and obviously the views from the summit can't be beat. But if you're talking about views of the mountain range, I've never seen a better one than from Rogers Campground. I've seen it from every angle. You get the full north-south. The presidential range is really a single ridge. This is common where you have a ridge and then they got to name every single distinct point with it. You can just call it a different mountain. So if you hear people talk about Mount Adams or Mount Washington or Mount Eisenhower, that is one ridge. It used to all just be called Mount Washington, and then I think in the 50s they decided they semantically divided it up to say anything that goes, any coal that goes over a certain, I think 200 feet or something like that gets its own name, and so they populated it with other presidents. But regardless, Rogers is just situated in a beautiful spot. And so these first movers had this very small informal event. It wasn't called Porcupine Freedom Festival, and it wasn't designated as a Porcfest. And then the next year they made it formal, and so that next year is Porcfest #1. People who attended that first event are called, they usually refer to it as Porcfest 0. Kind of reminds me of the way they name dynasties in Egypt. You have First Dynasty, and then there's Dynasty 0, and then there's pre-dynastic. But so Porcfest basically grew every year since then. I would just be kind of interesting to see what it was like early on. The first one that I went to, I think, was in 2012, and by then it had really grown into a very large event. Thousands of people, very well attended from all over the country and indeed all over the world. And for those of you who, again, aren't necessarily familiar, I mean, ostensibly, it's a series of concurrent lectures. There's different areas in the campground that are designated. Usually there's a main pavilion and then 1 or 2 annexes that are similar, and that these are formal planned events where they bring in speakers. And these will be, all of the celebritarians that you can think of. David Friedman, regular there, Bob Murphy, Tom Woods, Dave Smith, Scott Horton, Michael Humer, just the list goes on. People from the Mises Institute, people from Cato, people from Reason, Nick Gillespie, just a very wide, last year they had JFK Jr., which is not a libertarian, so there's a lot of controversy around that. And so you go, okay, yeah, it's a series of lectures. That's interesting if you want to go. And of course, the first years that I went, I did go to all these lectures, and I saw a lot of good ones. I actually remember, I think the first anti-Stefan Molyneux video I ever made was because I saw him speak at Porcfest, and I saw him debate Ben Powell and a few others, and just thinking, now that I see this guy in the flesh and hear him really speak, he's full of shit. And and not to say that the value in Porkfest is to dethrone your idols. Not that he was ever my idol, but so you could say, well, ostensibly that's what it is. But it's this large gathering. There's all this entrepreneurship that happens, and aside from the official events, there's just hundreds of non-official events. People going to run their own booths, and a lot of it is just people who, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, are just they do the circuit. They show up at carnivals and stuff and sell their wares, and you definitely have that at Porkfest. But then you have this not just libertarian but radical anarcho-capitalist element that's injected into it. So people are selling guns, people are selling drugs, people are selling booze. There's child labor laws are not being respected in the least. So there's a lot of child capitalism. And that's another thing. Having talked to people, it sounds like the first years that I went in 2012 was kind of a transition where before that it had been basically a giant bachelor party. It had been mostly young men coming and having like a drunken brawl, and that still has that element, but it became many more families, many more women. David Friedman has commented, and he's been doing the libertarian circuit since the early 70s, that this is the only it's the only place where the sex ratio is kind of normal. And we'll actually get into that in a little bit because I'm we'll get there. But there's tons of, I've heard people who say they don't want to go. Like I remember there's one speaker who said that the FSP had done something that he disagreed with and he wanted to boycott it, but he said his kids would not have it. His kids insisted that he go. And so it is a really strange feeling. This is like I remember once seeing a gay anarchist Arab with an AK-47 having a conversation with David Friedman, who's obviously like an atheist Jew, right? So it's like, oh, okay, you must be a Porkfest. Or multiple times seeing 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds like with assault weapons, like with AR-15s, handguns, like it's quite the event, right? And it's also like this big conclave where you get to meet, and I've met many subscribers there. People I knew, people I didn't know, people have come up to me and say, "Oh, I like your stuff," or people I've known for a long time. So I remember, Jack Lloyd, who does the Anarchast, or the one of the comic strips. Sorry, Jack, I'm forgetting. Like, I've known him online for years, and like, he just, oh, there he is. He's at Porkfest, and you get to meet him in person. And it's like, oh, you're just making that connection. Great event. If you've never gone, I highly recommend people go. I know a lot of you have gone because I've met a lot of you there. Also, a lot of you say you're going to go and then you never do, and I think that you definitely should. That doesn't mean you're committing to move. There's no commitment to move to New Hampshire. I realize that a lot of people don't want to do that. They have their own reasons, valid or not. But it's just an event. And right now is kind of the time, unless you want to find yourself juggling, site sharing or whatever, they still have sites available. And now is the time to like lock that in. So to get into the pork showers, obviously, if you follow my channel, like this has been an issue that I've become interested in, and there's actually not a lot of, one of the reasons I got interested in this topic is there's almost no research, there's almost no study, there's almost nothing published about this. There's actually good evidence that the literati, the academia within the United States, are the group probably most biased against this. So they might want to study just about anything. That this is something, not only that it's even worse than they would be anti this. If they would be anti this, they would be making studies to try and discourage or end communal showers. They just don't. It doesn't even enter their mind, and so they just don't. And one thing about Rogers, and I praised their location because their location is stunning. It's a beautiful, beautiful spot. But Rogers has a lot of problems as a campground because it is the classic situation where it needs a lot of repairs, and those repairs are more costly than the value of the campground. The owner has owned it for a very long time. He's in his 80s now. He's a nice guy. He has supported Porkfest. I think Porkfest is a bit of a white elephant in the sense that, it started fairly innocuous. I don't know when people started showing up with guns. Probably when it was small, people wouldn't have noticed. If there was 24 people there and a couple, one or two of them had a handgun, that's perfectly legal in New Hampshire, first of all, and it wouldn't have, caused much of an issue. By the time it started to become more, I say, overt or hard to ignore, it was also becoming bigger. And as far as I can tell, and having asked people, like, this is the one event that really they'll fill the campground, they'll sell out every single space, and they'll do bonkers business. They're going to sell parking, so people are going to pay thousands of dollars just to park in the grass. I mean, it's literally no cost to them to do that, and it's just cash cow, cash cow. This is their one event, so they kind of can't get rid of it because it's the only thing that even brings in any revenue, and it's worked, but it's falling apart. The campground has major electrical issues. So 2 years ago, we set up on a site, and we got an RV site because we wanted to have a septic, or we wanted to have a drainage system. We wanted to have for the water to go. We also wanted power, and there was no power. There was no power at our site. It was completely broken. We could see that the transformer that ran our lot had been hit by a car at some point, and we talked to some people who spent a couple of years, like, who come there for the summer, and said, oh yeah, they used to have a manager who lived there. He'd have his trailer there all summer, and his girlfriend backed into the transformer, and she just crushed it, destroyed it. And that had been a couple of years before, and they never fixed it. And we went to the office and we said, hey, there's no power. We're paying, we paid full price for this spot, and the power doesn't work, and I thought, well, they should. I mean, you would think that they would go and fix it, like, right then. They'd have their maintenance guy, or they'd hire an electrician. They come and fix it, right? I mean, if you were in a hotel and you said, we don't have any power in my room, they wouldn't just say, oh, well, okay, tough. But they never fixed it all through Porcfest. And then, lo and behold, we got the same spot the following year, which was 2023, and it was still broken. So they had a whole year, and I'm sure that they never even tried to fix it. It's not like they tried and they couldn't make it work. They just never tried. And that happens all the time. And there's serious water shortage problems. They're well, they don't have enough wells that are deep enough to keep up with demand, and so the campground runs out of water repeatedly. It basically runs out of water every morning when people start to shower at 7 a.m. The tank, they have about something like 100,000 gallons or something like that, 20,000 gallons, basically in a giant, it's not a water tower, but it's a tank at the top of the hill, because the whole campground is situated on the slope of a hill. So you don't really need a tower, you just put a tank at the top. But it can't keep up with the demand during Porcfest. I think it can keep up with demand okay when there's 1/10 as many people, but when it fills up, it can't. So there have been many problems, and the owner wants to sell the campground. Totally fine. He wants to retire. He doesn't want to own it anymore, and he's asking for something like $1 million and $1.5 million, I think. And so far no buyers, so no one's buying it at that price. And people have looked into, well, what would it cost to fix everything? To fix all the outlets, to fix the well situation, to fix the bat. And the answer is it would be much more than that. It'd probably be more like $2 or $3 million. So it's classic. Like if you have a car that's only worth $10,000 and you need to put $50,000 into it. I remember what that's okay, that would be unrealistic. Say you have a car that's worth $1,500 and you got $3,000 in repairs to do to it. Are you going to do it? Almost certainly not, right? And so Rogers has kind of been in this situation basically as long as I've been there. It has a putt-putt golf course that it's in complete disrepair. It still can be used, and so they will open it briefly, but it also had a large water slide built in to the hill. Again, there's a big slope, and they built this very large water slide that ends in like a little pool at the base. And in all the years that I've gone to Porcfest, only in the very first year did they ever turn that slide on, and they only turned it on for one day. And it was because they had gotten a lot of rain that day. And now, if you go, it's never been on since then. But that pool at the base is it's full of lily pads. Like it's literally just become a pond. So it is it's just one of those things. It's becoming dilapidated. It doesn't make enough money throughout the year to justify a higher price, and doesn't justify the investment. It also sounds like the owner has just an attitude of like, I'm just not going to bother. And I can, you know what, to be fair, I can understand that. But it raises certain problems. Now, I typically don't stay at Rogers. I typically stay in nearby hotels. There's a couple of hotels in town. By the way, if you're looking to go to Porkfest now, you probably cannot get a room during, say, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You probably can get a room in one of these hotels earlier in the week. They likely haven't sold out yet, but they will. I usually reserve my rooms as soon as I know the dates for Porkfest. Whenever they tell us the dates the next year, which is usually in July, I'll just reserve my rooms then, so I don't have to worry about it. That's basically the way you have to do it. Somebody messaged me on Reddit and they said they wanted to go, and they were like, "Well, should I stay in the hotel at Rogers? Because Rogers has a hotel itself, but you can't reserve rooms there now. It's way too late. Those fill up, I think, multiple years in advance. I think Porkfest itself reserves a lot of those rooms for their official guests, right? If they're having a speaker come, I don't think that they don't really pay them very much, but they'll say you can have a room. So obviously, though, as a communal shower advocate and somebody who's been there, but I have stayed at Rogers a couple times. The first time I went, I slept in my car. I had a pickup truck at the time, and I would just slept in the bed. And then I tented there, I think, twice. First time I got my own spot, and second time I just found somebody, and they said, "Yeah, you can stay at our place." And the bathroom facilities at Rogers are just not up to the task. There's just no getting around that. They have the main office and then two other, I guess what the term would be, bathhouses, but these are, smaller outbuildings that have toilets, that have showers. They have showers with stalls, and they have no hot water ever, and they often have just no water ever. And I've never had a hot shower at Rogers. I've tried. I did spend total maybe 3 weeks, where that's 3 years, but each one's a week, where I was living there, and you just couldn't. There would be no water, or it would just dribble out, and it would be cold or be nothing. Also, the staff just can't keep any of that stuff clean, so those bathhouses are typically pretty dirty. I mean, it's not the worst you can imagine. I have seen worse other places, but it's bad. And their staff, I mean, you imagine this is a campground that's probably used to servicing like, a tenth as many people. They're not going to hire 10 times more people for 1 week. The Porfest organizers themselves do bring in third party, like, they bring in tons of porta potties. I think something like 50 or 100. They bring in extra janitorial staff that they contract, who come and basically carry most of the load. But even so, it's just logistically something that they can't keep up with. So, and even if all that stuff was working great, I don't think that they could handle the volume of the number of people who are there. So, I complained about this a couple years, and people started saying, "Well, it's Porkfest. You should fix it. You should do something about it. If you think that the showers are bad, you should build your own. And also, if you think that it's bad that they're stalls and they should be communal, then you should build communal." And honestly, the idea of doing that, as soon as I would think about it and realize how challenging that would be logistically and how expensive that would be, I thought, I don't really want to do that, and so I didn't. I want to go to Porkfest, and I want to enjoy Porkfest. I don't want to be running an event. But Porkfest is great, but you don't need to see every David Friedman lecture, because I've seen many David Friedman lectures, and not to say he doesn't come up with new interesting things or isn't valuable to listen to, but like, there's a marginal utility. It does diminish over time. Same reason that I'm not going to watch every single Mises Institute video. There was a time when I did. There was a time when every single Mises Institute video came out, and I would watch the whole thing, and beginning to end, right? Because it was relatively new to me, and I hadn't necessarily heard it all. So the idea of maybe running something became more and more amenable to me. And then one of my subscribers messaged me before, so basically at the end of 2021, started 2022, and said that he knew that I was into communal showers. He'd never tried one. He wanted to try one, thought it was an interesting idea. And he found that there were people organizing something else at Porcfest where they wanted showers. So enter enter the most controversial people at Porcfest, and that is not me or the communal showers. That's not the people selling drugs or the people with child labor or the people with guns. It is the nudists. So Jeff is an outspoken nudist. He's a famous nudist. He's a complete plumb-line libertarian, other than maybe his Zionism, but that's debatable. There's a lot of, I mean, one of the most radical things you're going to see at Porcfest is all of the Zionist Jews, but but then they can give as much as they get. But Jeff is a nudist, and he had been going to Porcfest for many years. I think he's been going almost as long as me, and he wanted to do a nudist enclave, and so this which he did, and it's called so-called the Body Freedom Village. And one of the things that Jeff wanted was to have a hot tub, and because there is a limited water supply, basically you're going to fill the hot tub once, and you're not going to really be able to recycle the water. And for that reason, very important that anybody using the hot tub shower before. There's logistical realities about pool use that I think a lot of people take for granted, and the situation at Porcfest is such that it kind of brings you back to a pre-chlorine, logistics of the pools being able to handle a large volume of people. And so, in cooperation with him, you know, I guess I don't want to say his name, but my subscriber friend was like, let's cooperate with them and we'll set up some showers. So we did. Now, we didn't really know what we were doing. We had some ideas, and those ideas ended up working mostly. One thing we really didn't work out very well was the drainage situation. So we thought we figured out how to get all the stuff to go into the drain, and we didn't. So we did probably saturate that entire campground with thousands of gallons of water, or whatever, however much it was. But we learned a lot, and we also didn't really have the resources to have more than one floor, so we had a single shower floor with 4 shower heads. And although ideologically I wasn't wedded to this idea, I also wasn't totally against this idea. We decided to have them be co-ed. The Body Freedom Village was co-ed anyway, so it kind of fit in with that. And so, we had a co-ed communal shower. And the next year we decided to split from Body Freedom Village to have a little bit independence. Not that there was any acrimony or whatever. We just wanted to be able to make decisions that weren't going to have to get, Jeff's approval, because there might be differences of opinion. So we got up our own spot. This is the spot where there was no electricity. And again, we only had one shower floor, so we did co-ed again. So that was in 2022. And then, 2022. And then last year we were in the same spot, but I was able to expand it to have 2 shower floors. So it had kind of always been my preference, and I think most people's preference, having talked to people, to have it be sex segregated, to have one for men and one for women. And let's talk about that a little bit. So when we were running, so I kept records of how many people were using the showers, and basic things like sex, and if they were unique, like if the person had been there more than once, so like how many unique individuals used it, and how many total showers were given. The second year I recorded even more age ranges. I didn't record specific ages, but when people would come, I would say, okay, what do you fall within this 5 years, whatever. I recorded things like group size. The first year at Body Freedom Village, they were free. We didn't charge anything. The second year, when we moved off, we sold shower by shower. So anytime you came to shower, you paid. And we weighted the price to encourage people to go into groups. We we offered discounts the more people that you brought. So if 2 people came, they paid less per person. If 3 people came, they paid less per person. If 4 people came, and that's as many shower heads as we had, you paid less per person. And we found that most people just paid the single price. We did have some people who came into groups, but the total numbers they increased, but not a lot. And so then last year, and this makes it not the best empirical test because you'd want to if you wanted to have a real good empirical test, you would change one variable at a time. But we changed 2 big things last year. 2 shower floors, so sex segregated, one for men, one for women, which then does bring up the whole trans issue because we've had trans people use them. When it's co-ed and everyone uses the same one, then that's just what you do. If it's not co-ed and people are mixed or separate, then you have to decide where they go. And that ends up being like, just logistically, you have to decide. I didn't feel strongly one way or the other, but I will say when it was co-ed, we did have trans people use it. Several, actually. Way higher than their average of the population. And there may have been other ones that I just didn't know, but there were definitely several. Since we split it, I did have some trans people come and ask, and I said, of course they can use them, and I basically said they could use either one that they wanted, but they didn't. So they had the option, and they decided. And to be fair, I don't know when they came and asked how, because some people are coming and they're just curious, but they're not interested. If that makes sense, they don't want to do it, but they just want to know about this, right? So, but the other thing that we changed is we switched from a pay per shower to a subscription model, where you paid one time, and that entitled you to come as many times as you, well, no, once a day for the rest of the week. And it also entitled you to bring your friends of the same sex. So, and up to 3 of them. And obviously we saw a huge increase in the number of people who did that. Now, is it because it was now sex segregated, or because we were basically charging a lot less? It depended on how many showers you took, like to calculate how much less it was, but it would have been a lot cheaper to do that. I think we were charging $15 for a membership. If you bought that on Monday when we opened, and you took a shower up until Sunday, you got 6 or 7 showers, and you divide 15 by 6 or 7, and yeah, it's like $2 or $3 instead of 50. And I think before we were selling individual showers for $10 or maybe even $15. So it was way less, and we had many more people use them. So let me share my screen. Let me go here. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is my data. Now, so here we got pork showers 2021, pork showers 2022, pork showers 2023. See if I can scroll down a little bit. And my data set here isn't perfect. In fact, I had this written down on paper, but so like the first year, I was just like, I had a tally. It said boys, girls, and like the number of tallies. And I had it separated by day. You can see here we didn't start until Wednesday, because it took us Monday and Tuesday just to, we had planned ahead, we had stuff, but it took us this long to get it to work, right? We like getting water to come out of shower on a floor. It took that long. Right, so it's very much a learning process. So you can see these first 2, 2021, 2022, these are co-ed. So this is one shower floor. I think we were open most of the time. And you can see here's the trans people. And these are, I don't think I recorded enough this first year to know like unique versus not unique. I could be wrong. Yeah, so I did have, it looks like I did. Again, so these first 2 years, the information wasn't the best. But then last year I recorded a lot more. Since we were selling subscriptions, I had people put their age, like so their exact age. And whenever they would come, I wasn't recording their names, but I was recording how many there were and their group size and whatnot. If I can move this down to stay down. Yeah, there we go. So I think this is reflected a little bit incorrect, but basically, from year one to year two, we basically doubled, and then we basically doubled again from year three to year four, or year two to year three. So there was a big increase, relatively speaking. I expect that it's reasonable that we have another doubling this coming year. That may or may not happen. We will see. But one thing we noticed right off the bat is that we obviously had more men than women. It was something like 3 to 1, and that's obviously not. I mean, look, I'm totally gay. I'm not into women at all. But there really isn't a future for communal showers if women don't, get to use them and have experience with them. There's actually some evidence that one of the reasons they have declined. I don't want to say there's evidence. There's a plausible theory. How about that? Or hypothesis that women not having the exposure might have been one of the reasons they declined. There obviously are women who've taken communal showers. There obviously were schools and gyms and pools where women did take communal showers. It is a thing. It's reflected in some of the media. If you've ever seen the movie Carrie, it features very prominently, or the film Porky's. It's obviously a thing. But whereas with men, it was basically universal and ubiquitous, mandatory and unavoidable. With women, it was more patchy. There may have been schools that did it. There may have been schools that didn't do it. And you often had a clear disparity where a female locker room, they might actually require showers, but they would have stalls, and men would have gang showers. We actually found Title IX report. Is this woman who basically she had a career of going around to schools and telling them how they could comply to Title IX. Right, Title IX passes. You have all these schools that are 20, 30, 40 years old. They don't have facilities that are necessarily compliant with this federal diktat. And one of the things that she gave as an example is a school, and I'm assuming she's using this example because it was something that plausibly happened, that the men's locker room has gang showers, the women's locker room has stalls, and to be equal, they should all be stalls. Of course, to be equal, they could easily just have no showers at all, or to have them all be gang, or have them all be stalls. But her logic was, and she didn't annotate this, there was no note. I actually wanted to interview her, but unfortunately she's passed away. She just assumed. But you see this thing where then a lot of women didn't have that experience, and then when women started to fill out more roles of authority on school boards as principals, in a capacity where they're setting policy, you could have a situation where before all the men are like, well, this is fine. This is what I always dealt with, and it wasn't a big deal. Worked for me. It should work for, the kids now. And then you mix in some females who maybe never had that experience, and they go, well, that sounds weird to me, so no, we're not going to do that. So it was important to me that there be sex segregation. I prefer it that way. I think most people prefer it that way. And because we were getting about 3 to 1, almost exactly 3 to 1 men to women, I figured that if we had a second shower floor, we should have an increase in the ratio of women. And we did indeed see an increase in women, and we saw an increase in men. But it actually came out at the end of the day that the ratio stayed almost exactly the same. I believe, I don't know if it's on this sheet. Let me look. I don't think it's going to be there. How far over does this go? Oh, damn. Yeah, but I know the number off the top of my head because for year two anyway, for 2022, it was I think it was 2.9 to 1. So for every woman who took a shower, there were 2.9 men who took a shower, and last year it was 3 to 1. So it actually slightly went up, and I thought that was really interesting because you would think dividing them into two different sexes that more of both, but more that women would be more comfortable right? And you know, talking to some of these women and some of the men, basically everyone said that they preferred it that way. There certainly were people who didn't care. You know, we had women who were perfectly comfortable doing co-ed and said so. But yeah, it actually, the ratio went down ever so slightly, which was a little bit of a kick in the pants. It's like, wow, we spent thousands of dollars. I think building the second floor was something probably cost $3,000 or $4,000, something like that. It's a little hard because some of the costs are united. Like you don't have to buy an extra pump, you don't have to buy an extra site, you don't have to right, but like the shower floor, you know, the extra showers, like all that. I think it was probably $3,000-$4,000 to do that, and the total numbers went up for sure. So that's great. But the sex ratio really didn't change. And one possible thing that people put out is maybe this is the sex ratio of Porkfest. Maybe there just are 3 guys to every girl. I That wasn't my impression ever having gone. I don't know if there's actually research on that. So if there's anybody who knows like what the sex ratio of Porkfest actually is, that would be interesting because then maybe that's explaining this. But this ratio has held like very well through all of these iterations, even though these first 2 are co-ed and this last one is not co-ed. And I'm at a loss. Like I can understand that there would be a sex difference. I'm not saying that it should be equal because it's probably not going to be equal. I would always assume that there would be more men relative to women. But I would have thought that switching from co-ed to not co-ed would have obviated that and maybe drawn in, relatively speaking, more women. More women. So that was really fascinating. I also tracked if they had previous communal shower experience. So we can see here, these are first time communal shower. So I don't have this data for these 2 years. This wasn't a question that I asked. I asked this year. And so you can see this is the total number of people per day. So this is like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I don't know that we really ran the showers on Sunday. I think we ran out the water on Saturday just to, you know, the last day you just want to get out of there and rig it all down. And you can see each day how many, these are not unique users. This is other people going who have communal shower experience. And so you can actually see the first day, this was very odd. I think we were open very late on Monday. We didn't have too many people, but all of them were new to communal showering. I think I remember who this was, by the way. It's kind of funny, like going through, like looking at the numbers, there's like little patterns you pick up. So even though they don't necessarily have a name attached to them, you can kind of figure out. So like if you see that it was a party of 2 and one of them is 1 and one of them is 42 and one of them is a woman and one of them is a man, it's highly likely that it's a mom with her 1-year-old son, right? In which case, it's like I think I remember that, but like, right? But then you can see that after that first day, the number of people who are new to communal showering, it fluctuates quite a bit. I think the average overall, here we go, is 36.9. So we had a total of 65 people who never taken a communal shower before, who this was their first experience. I also noticed, if you look here, this was kind of the only number. I was trying to look for correlations, and look, this data is not perfect. So this is not empirically rigorous statistics. I acknowledge that this is for my own curiosity. You'll see that this kind of, other than this first day, which was just a very small number overall, where it's 100% new, is this 52. And if we scroll over here, we have the average age. That's also interesting, by the way. We'll talk about this in a second. But you can see like the average age that day is the lowest. It's 27 for females, 30 for males. And that is the lowest. So it does kind of make sense. This is, again, this correlation not scientific, but the day with the highest percentage of new communal shower users was also the day with the lowest average age. And I guess I should also point out, can you see this? Yes. These are the average ages females, males, and notice that they are basically the same, 33 and 33.17. And there is, again, not scientific. There were times, so the way I recorded it was, if we had to say a group of two, I would record, the sex. So it was two guys or two women or a guy and a girl. And then I would record the ages, so 52, 31, for instance. But I did not tie the age. Now, if it was just one person, it was then very clear. One person, boom, there's the age. Then that person is that age. If there's a group, it wasn't recorded if which age went to which gender. So like I actually just as a rule, if I didn't know, and there were some times where I could actually remember that group and be like, oh yes, I think I can assign the correct number, but I just assumed that the man was the older of the two, which is probably not always true, but that's just so. But it's consistent. It's a consistent bias to then look at this. But that's interesting because if I'm assuming the man is on a default, I'm awarding the man the older of the two ages, or if there's multiple ages, the men are still coming out slightly younger than the women. So the bias would be to push the male age older relative to the women. So this does imply that the average age, it seems like it's higher for women than men, but not by a lot. I think that that total number would maybe bump this up like 1 year or 2 years, something like that. Probably not more. Let's see. This year is unique users. So, this doesn't mean how many showers there were, but how many unique users there were. So we had 176 last year. It was only 60 the year before. This I think is wrong. Again, my note taking was limited this first year, and actually not that much better the second year. So I'm looking. It's just interesting. Like, what do you want to record, and how much time do you have to record it? So yeah, we did have. We offered free showers to families and to couples at different times. And we did have several families that came and used them regularly during our family. We had at least one. There was they were from New York, but they were like Asian American, and they came every day. But they would come, and it was interesting that they had a father and a son, or a mother and a father, and then they had three kids. Two of them were teenage sons, and then they had a much younger, like a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old. And the two sons would always come on their own, and then the man and the wife would always come separately, and they would, I guess, take turns. So sometimes one of them would have the 1-year-old, sometimes the other one would have the 1-year-old. And they came for the free times, but they also paid. And the dad made a comment. He probably paid the most money because he paid separately for each. And the thing is, we allowed you to, if you paid, you could bring other people, and there was no additional cost. And there were people who did that. There was a group of 3 guys who signed up, and one of them bought a membership, but then all 3 of them came like every day, and that was fine. We wanted people to have that as a shared communal experience. That was kind of the point. Obviously, we would have liked more money. By the way, the amount of money that we made, we didn't. This is not making profit at this point. If it doubled one more time, it would probably cover our operating costs, so like the water and the site. But that wouldn't even start to cut into like the capital. If it doubled 2 more times and continued for a couple of years, that might pay for the capital. But that's kind of where this is not. There's the potential to make money here. That is something that could happen with enough people. And after the capital has been paid off, it is conceivable. It is, I would say, unlikely, not impossible, but unlikely. I'm mostly doing it for ideological reasons. So I'm okay losing a certain amount of money. I don't want to lose a ton of money. And we'll kind of maybe talk about that in a second. But obviously, by lowering the price, we sold many, many, many more memberships than we did. But yeah, it was interesting. So about Rogers, like they don't have hot water. They often have no water at all. So there were days where there was no water. We had water tanks, so we had these filled up, and so even when they ran out of water, we could still operate. Uh, the showers use about 1.8 gallons per minute per shower. And so we were telling people, please keep it to like 7 minutes. We weren't ringing a bell and telling people they had to leave, but just, hey, be aware, like there's a limit to how much we can do. And if you take longer than that, you are making it difficult. So we thought 7 minutes was enough time that you can get it done. Again, we weren't going to be Nazis about it. And we put digital clocks in each so people could see. But mostly people were pretty good about it. We got good reviews. Everyone who used them said that they liked them. We got some comments after. There was a group that came in at the end of the week, and one of them reached out on, I think on Telegram or Signal, I can't remember, and just said, hey, this was great. I really enjoyed this. And I just wish I had known sooner. It's easy when you are the only place that has hot water. I remember there was another guy who was obviously shy. He obviously didn't, relish the idea of having a group shower. He had asked when is a good time to come where there's fewer people, and I said, well, we don't know. We weren't open all day. Like I kind of kept it. I think we did 8 to 11 in the morning, and then like 5 to 7 at night, or 5 to 8, something like that, to give people a window. There's always people who want to come later. I remember we'd had someone who had used it the first year and the second year, and she didn't use it at all the third year because she said, well, I want to shower at midnight. And I said, well, I'm not going to stay up that late, so I'm sorry. But this guy who's also Asian, or Asian American, he asked when it was least busy. I gave him my best estimate, and that's when he would come. And as it turned out, he did end up having to share it a couple times, which he did. And then at the end of the week, I said, hey, I noticed that you made it explicit that you'd rather have more privacy. So why are you bothering with this? And he said, well, these are the only hot showers. like you can't even take a shower, let alone a hot shower. So like for him, it was worth it, despite the fact that, he would have preferred like his own private area. I don't know if this is true. I didn't ask him, but he did seem to like loosen up as time went by, which seems like something that would happen. Like I said, we did have all these people who had never done it before, and I remember some in particular were a little bit taken aback, but quickly came around. Again, that group of 3. One of them said that he had communal shower experience. He had played sports. I think he said college soccer or something. The other 2, no, they had none, and they were nervous at first, but then they came right around to it, and they started, encouraging others. It was kind of interesting. And I actually overheard other people like walking around, like not at the showers, but like, just walking around the campground telling like their friends, oh, like you go and you shower, and it's like, and the person they were telling, oh, and you like connect, and you're like, it's more, shows high trust and whatever, and it's more social. And you could tell the person who's talking about was not having like no, that's not going to happen. So like, there's definitely, there's there's a lot of people who will go the whole week and just not take a shower. We had actually a woman come and say her husband needed to take a shower, but that he would basically like hold his breath through the whole week to not do it. So like, there's a lot of that goes on. There's also, if people have campers, those often have showers in them, and if they have tanks, like sometimes they can manage, without. So like, it wasn't the case that we had a true monopoly, but the longer and the more problems Rogers has, the more that becomes true. We definitely would get upticks, like when they ran out of water, they would just close the bathrooms. Also, one of the bathrooms started to electrocute people. So one of the 2, there's the main office, and then there's 2 annex bathhouses. One of them started electrocuting people. People were getting shocks in the shower. They showed up at our place to take a shower. One of the families, it was a big family. I think they had 4 or 5 kids, but the mom had been shocked, And I now know that they approached Rogers, and Rogers says they're imagining things and we're not going to fix anything. So I don't know how much more I want to say on that, other than like the Porcfest facilities people have started talking to me. We established dialogue last year, but yeah, there's a the issues with Rogers are compounding and accumulating, and it seems unlikely that they are going to be resolved. The only way that they kind of would be resolved is basically if Rogers was purchased and the new owners fixed everything. But A, that may not happen, and B, I mean, there's a chance that the owner could just die or retire, and the place could be unowned, or whoever owns it will just be a property developer who wants to build condos or whatever, or who knows, and or that the new owner like wants to own a campground, but they don't want a libertarian anarchist festival taking up a prime week in June. So like there's growing uncertainty about the future. I guess this isn't really inside information. This is kind of out there, but there's growing uncertainty about the future of Rogers' involvement in Porcfest. Not that this is definitive. It's definitely going to happen this year. So that's also another reason to go, like this year, because there will be Porcfest after that, no matter what. That'll never end. But like there could be an end of an era. And so if you want to experience like the Rogers part of it, going sooner rather than later may make sense, because it may not be at Rogers forever. So not to give away too much inside baseball, but we've done well. We've grown. I think we'll continue to grow. Based on how many people go and how many people we're accommodating. Oh, and there's other things too. So Rogers, each of the bathhouses has 4 stalls per sex. So 8, 8, 8. So what is that? 24. So we have 2, 4. So we have a total of 8. So 1/3 as many as Rogers. But because of the throughput, because of the way a communal shower operates, I have no doubt, I'm quite certain that we can handle more people per hour than Rogers can. So even if the one bathroom wasn't electrocuting people and it was open, the throughput of just 8 communal showers on 2 floors is higher than 24 stalls, individual stalls. This is, by the way, when I was early getting into this, you can find studies from like the 50s and the 60s. And these studies are not about, social aspects or bonding or anything like that. They're about just the logistics of how many people in a given space can take a shower. And there's just no comparison. It's much more and much faster with a communal shower. And if you think about, just in terms of like usage, somebody, and this goes into the idea of like how architecture shapes our lives. It does in so many ways. In a stall, you now have a restricted movement pattern. And also the point of a stall, that would be bad enough on its own. That would slow things down. But what really, really kills it with stalls is that the point of them is to provide privacy. And if you're using them and you want to have that privacy, then you're not just going to shower there. You're going to shower, and then you're going to dry off, and then you're going to change, and then you're going to leave. And that whole time when you're drying off and then changing, the shower is not on. The head is there available for somebody else, but it's not available because you're in the stall with the curtain closed or the door closed, whatever the thing is. It's not accessible. And so the time that you require is multiplied, probably by 2, maybe by 3, depends, right? And that is not a problem. So the way we had it set up is each shower floor, they're enclosed, and this is something we'll talk about in a second too, because I think this is interesting. And then we had like a changing room that just was directly attached, right? You go in and out. All of this is enclosed, so this is not visible to anyone, walking around. It was open air on the top in the shower, so it means it might have been visible to drones, which is a thing at Porcfest. I never heard of drones being used. We didn't have any reports of that, but like hypothetically could have happened. But yeah, you go shower and then you just go into the changing area. And while you're drying off and getting changed, another person can go in. And there were times when we were quite busy, where it was full, and we were have 4 people showering, 4 people in the changing area, and just in and out, in and out, in and out. And like the throughput is just insanely different. We just way faster than Rogers could ever handle. And I think I did the math. I thought the R8, I think we could do about 70 to 80 people an hour. And Rogers would probably be something like half that or even less because of the stalls. The other thing is the cleanliness. Wow. So like the stalls are like never clean. There's 2 problems. A, they have way more surface area, and they don't allow smooth movements, right? So you can't go and mop or disinfect the entire floor. You have to mop and disinfect 4 different floors that have barriers between them. You're never going to clean the curtains. You're never going to clean the hinges. You're never, like, the walls, all this stuff. Also, because they were enclosed, it's dark, dank, and musky. Now, one thing we did not, when we first started this, we didn't put a roof over the showers just because we didn't want to put in the extra effort. That would have been difficult. But then it became actually a huge benefit. People liked it. A lot of people commented that they liked the outdoor feel. I have to say I agree. I like the outdoor feel. But then the other thing that did is during the day we had multiple hours of direct sunlight on the walls and on the floor. Right? So it would completely dry everything out, and direct sunlight just disinfects like amazingly, right? So I did clean the floors, but cleaning the floors was incredibly easy, right? You put out some bleach, you scrub it. You could do both floors, less than 5 minutes each, 10 minutes. It's very clean. And then you put in the sun. It's much cleaner. So you had people, even though they maybe didn't like the communal aspect of it, or they wanted a little bit more privacy, it was just much cleaner and much faster, and there was actually hot water. So we had a lot going for it as far as that goes. We did have people who didn't, would complain about the nudity a little bit and say, I don't want to do that. And I said, that's fine, but you don't get to, like, it's my shower and I'm setting the rules. So, like, you don't want to do that. That's okay. In previous years, we did allow people if they wanted to pay extra, but nobody did that. So yeah, if you pay double, you can have the whole thing to yourself, but nobody would do that, ultimately. But this was rare. No, I actually want to juxtapose this with the Body Freedom Village. So we were requiring nudity in the showers, and people adhered to that. We had a lot of people who'd never done that before who still, went through with it. A lot of them ended up seeming more than okay with it. I don't want to put too many words in their mouths or project, my own biases too much. And definitely I'm relating stories of people who I don't think they became huge advocates of it, but, they tolerated it. Some people complained, when they wanted to take a shower, but, we said you had to get naked, and they complained a little bit, but not very much. And there were no public complaints. So the Body Freedom Village people, though, they are the most complained. Like if you go into any of the Porcfest chat rooms on Facebook, on Signal, on Telegram, this was complained about so much and so vociferously, not by everybody, but by a sizable minority, that discussion has been banned on many of the Porcfest related topic forum rooms, or they say that this is being segregated into its own area because we just cannot deal with this topic over and over and over and over and over. And what's so fascinating about it is, this is Porcfest, man. There's kids with guns who are drunk and high at the same time, like running around. And that is the thing that really angers. Again, it's a minority, but it's not a small minority. It's a definitely group. And Porcfest has been pulling its hair. Porcfest official policy has been basically implied tolerance of nudity, where it wasn't banned. and it was freely allowed. And now they're actually putting an end to that, by saying, well, there's now a segregated area where you can do the nudity. I think it is interesting how strong the pushback was to them, to the Body Freedom Village people, to the nudists, but how little or none there was, um, to the communal showers. In fact, there was someone who hasn't gone recently, right? So he wasn't there and has not been there since we've done the communal showers, and has not been there since there's been a Body Freedom Village, who who told me he wanted to use the communal showers. He wanted to use them with his family. He had a young son at the time, and that was something that he saw as valuable, as a service, as a thing to shower, and also specifically like to do it with his son. But at the same time, that the Body Freedom Village is threatening to the point where like he doesn't want to go to Porcfest if that's happening. And there is no allegation, because there's no evidence that the Body Freedom people are doing anything sexual. They're not hooking up. They're not jerking off. They're like, nothing sexual has ever been reported or done. But that's the vibe. Like the people who are against it kind of couch it in those terms. And so just being naked, but standing by a picnic table will then be described, as an aggressive affront. But if they come to the communal showers and I say you have to use them naked, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. So why? It's a very interesting. Why is the line where it is? I don't know the answer to that. But given the unrelenting controversy, I mean, and again, relative to what else goes at Porcfest, this is really interesting because again, there's people doing drugs, there's people, like there's highly sexual, like massages that are allowed. There used to be a big gay dance party that hasn't happened lately, but like I mean, there are people in leather, there's people with whips, there's rumors. I don't know, but there always is someone somewhere saying that there's an orgy tent somewhere. I don't know that ever was truly the case. Um, you know, Guns, knives, right? Anarchism, anti-governmentism, secessionism, racism, right? That's not promoted at Porcfest, but you do have people like that who do show up, right? Zionism, for Christ's sake. But then the nudists are they're the anathema ones. Again, it's not everyone. There's a lot of people who don't mind it at all. There's a lot of people who, yeah, they don't like it, but they tolerate it. I think that's probably the most common thing. But then there's a fairly vociferous, even if not necessarily super large minority, but it's not tiny, who are just, it's anathema. They cannot stand it. They will not shut up about it, and they will not stop complaining about it. But then you just put that wall around and you restrict the nudity to, I mean, it's still, I mean, when we were the most busy, we were talking 8, 9, 10 people, at a time. And that's fine. That's interesting. I think that's a topic of like, well, why is that? Why is that a problem? And there's a whole, that we know that there's been a cultural shift, where nudity has become sexualized. It's very interesting because as people have experienced less nudity in their private lives, the general culture has become more sexualized. So if you go back 50 years, swimming naked at the swimming hole, taking showers at the gym, at school, at the pool, at the campground, they all would have been communal. You would have, imagery or marketing. I mean, you could have marketed a lot of like soap companies or things like that. I mean, they marketed images now that would be considered like soft porn, right? Like, oh, here's a group of GIs in the South Pacific all using, Dial soap. And they weren't perceived that way at the time. And now people see them and say, oh, this is like, obviously this marketer was gay and he's making his fantasy out here. And like, well, and it's not impossible that never happened. It probably did happen sometime.